Hello everyone, this is Ron from mATX Legion. This is part of our review of the Silverstone PS08 micro ATX case, and this is part where I show you how to install components piece by piece into this small case. Now obviously we will use a screwdriver since it is not using toolless installation for installing the optical drives and the PCIe and all our motherboard stuff. So take a look at the layout first. Obviously it is a smaller case, and in fact it does not have the typical power supply mounting that's located at the bottom, as we have seen in pretty much 90% of the cases I have reviewed lately, but it has mounting at the top, and it sort of uses the power supply's fan at the bottom to kind of draw in hot air here from the bottom and sort of intake it outside. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to install a power supply here at the top. At first also we need to install the standoffs. Now you have to choose which one you're going to mount it to. Well, for example, if you're going to install a micro ATX case, you'll need to of course fill out all of those mounting holes there. But if you're going to install a mini ITX case, you only need to install it on 4 of the standoffs here. In fact, there are markers here for each of the hole, M for the micro ATX case. So you need to fill those out if you are going to use that. So I'm going to cut to that now. I'm going to install my power supply and also my motherboard standoffs before I proceed with installation. To install standoffs, take the adapter as included in the accessory pack and of course the standoff itself. Just place it inside the adapter and then screw it in place. That is much more convenient than using long nose pliers when securing the standoffs for your motherboard. Alright, as you can see, I have all my standoffs that I need installed, and the next thing is to install our motherboard. Now before you do that, make sure to put in the I/O shield. And because it is a very small case, the clearance is quite exact, so I suggest making sure that all the cables are out of the way, out of the main chamber at least, when you install your motherboard. Also, don't put in any heatsink or RAM before you put in your motherboard, because you'll be tempted to kind of hold it in that place, and that could damage your component. So I would suggest slowly lowering it down. See here that I'm not. There you go. Make sure that it is aligned first with the rear I/O shield here, and then just gently lower it down. There we go. Of course, your I/O shield provides some resistance here if it is a type that has padding, such as the one I have here. But once you screw it in place, it will be, of course, you need to kind of push it into that area first. So you'll have to be holding it here on the right while you're screwing it in place with one of the screws provided. The Silverstone Precision PS08 is 168 millimeters wide. Now that usually means you're going to be limited with your aftermarket heatsink mounting, because you have to accommodate for the space between the right side panel and the motherboard tray. The motherboard tray, the standoff, the motherboard, and the few millimeters from the motherboard and to the CPU height. So that leaves us actually measured as about 140 millimeters of space. That pretty much minimizes a lot of my options in terms of tower air cooling. You could use a downward blowing fan, which is the stock option, or sort of a more modest silent option, such as this one. That is a GLE Siberian 8mm fan. Or you can use sort of something beefier, like a Cooler Master Gemin 2 S524, a downward blowing fan. But the problem with those is that they are quite long, or a TC14PE from FanXpert2, but that will also minimize your ability to install a fan here in the rear, because unlike other cases, the fan mounting area here is not recessed, and in fact it is flush with the PCIe area. That means that you will be if you can't install the heatsink with the heat pipe sort of pointing to the back, and it will encroach in that area if you want to install a fan here. So either you can install a downward blowing fan without installing a fan here in the rear, or you can install a fan here in the rear and sort of orient that your cooler into a different direction if it has heat pipes. Other than that, we're going to install my cooler here. You can also use the stock cooling solution, of course. And unfortunately, you cannot use a 120mm self-contained liquid cooling solution, because there's no 120mm mounting except for the front area, and the hard drive mounting cage is out of the way, and you have to kind of mod it, do a little bit of modding, and drill these out of the way in order to mount it in the front. And the rear only has 92 millimeters, up to 92 millimeters of mounting, so you cannot use those self-contained liquid cooling solutions. Right now we have our heatsink installed in a RAM. Next is to install the video card. Obviously there is a hard drive cage here, right up to the part where the PCIe slot begins. So that means we can actually install longer video cards that go all the way up to the end. So I'm going to try a AMD HD 6990 video card. Try to fit it in. Before we do that, you have to remove the PCIe slot cover first. Now you need a screwdriver, and if you notice here in the rear there are 2 screws you have to remove first. To remove the plate that is sort of used to mount the PCIe slot cover, and 2 screws. You need a Phillips head screwdriver to remove them. There you go. So it's removed. There are, of course, the slot covers, which are, you need to punch them out. They're not reusable. So you just force your way in to kind of push it in. Make sure to kind of support it here on the other side so it doesn't scratch your motherboard when you sort of push it all the way in. Alright, I have punched out the 2 PCIe slot covers there. I have placed back my motherboard now to test out whether the HD 6990, which is pretty much the longest video card currently available, the HD 7990 is available, and it's also the same length, the same with the GTX 690. So this will pretty much serve as a good test. You have to sort of navigate your way around that in order to fit it in. Obviously, if you have a tall heatsink, this will not be possible since you'll be encroaching on top of that. There we go. And I'm going to install it here at the topmost PCIe slot. And there we go. Perfect. It is possible, but as you can see, the power connectors are covered. And you have to kind of make sure that you plug in the power connector. If you're going to use an HD 6990 on such a case, you want to make sure to plug in the power connector first, or any video card that is longer than your micro ATX motherboard here. Make sure to plug in the power connector before you slide it underneath. But other than that, there is no clearance issue other than the power supply connector. And once that is secured, of course, you take the screw that you removed and then the plate that you removed, and you'll basically hold it in place. You just slide it down like so, and then take your screw and screw it back in place. Installing drives inside the PS08 is pretty self-explanatory, since it basically is toolless, and you just need to align your drive inside and then screw them in place. You can even adjust the distance from where they are mounted, because there are 4 optional holes in there. Of course, there are some clearance issues to be mindful of. For example, you can see here I have a 3.5-inch drive here, and I basically have to remove my my RAM and my heatsink in order to install it in place. And also, if you have a 5.25-inch drive bay, make sure to remove the front cover first, of course. Here at the front, you just basically pinch it on either on both sides or on one side and drag it out. And then when you install it, you have to make sure that it does not encroach with your power supply. You see here at the top that it's already touching my power supply here. That is, see, this is a hardwired power supply, so I can't have any modular plugs in there without sort of encroaching on the air. So I still have a few millimeters to go. And so be mindful of the components you install depending on your clearance, and also make sure to install your hard drive first before you install your RAM or your heatsink, to be much more convenient. Now at the bottom, let me just grab the 5.1-inch device here and show you how to mount the SSD, which is the simplest one. You just basically take hold it here on the other side and take your screwdriver and screw it in place from down here and mount it with the bottom side mounting hole of your 2.5-inch drive. But other than that, you have to be mindful of the clearance first before you install any other component. Make sure to be mindful of the clearance of your 3.5 inch drive and your 5.25 inch drive. Alright, so this is what it looks like with everything plugged in. I noted already my clearance issues with the 5.25 inch and the power supply, as well as the long video cards. But let me just take the camera off here from the tripod and just quickly show you the clearance issue I encountered with the RAM I use. This is the Vengeance Pro RAM from Corsair, and these are slightly taller, just slightly taller than the standard height RAM. And as you can see, it just provides enough clearance that it's actually touching the SATA connector here for my 3.5 inch drive. So you cannot install, unfortunately, any enthusiast class heat spreader outfitted RAM. See here. So this is probably the most that you can install in there, and unless you, of course, you populate only one kit, and you only populate before the populate on the first and third RAM slot instead of the second and fourth RAM slot. So that's a clearance issue right there, because this is pretty much the standard 3.5 inch mounting that you see there. And even if you fill this entire slot with 3.5 inch drives, you will still encounter the high clearance with your RAM and the SATA connector. And pretty much it's quite difficult to manage the cables here because the space is quite cramped. And unfortunately, you can see there that there is a sort of a mesh blocking, the steel mesh blocking the fan and the front itself. So I can pretty much store my cables there without worrying about the fan blades being sort of chopping the cables that I store there, because there's a mesh blocking the area. Other than that, I was able to route the cables, front panel audio cable, sufficiently long. I have no issues with that. The 3.5 inch USB 3.0 cable rather is quite long, in fact, that I had to store the extra cables down there. And actually, let me just show you the back space for now. What it looks like behind the motherboard tray. Now, I couldn't route this 24-pin cable. It was too thick here at the back, because pretty much the thickness of clearance here is determined by this right here. Let me just take my show you the clearance. It's about a centimeter clearance with this motherboard tray and the right side panel, so there's really not enough space. But you can actually route these 8-pin CPU cable and a PCIe cable. So I chose to route it there just to kind of illustrate. And let me just move the camera down here. There is no hole between this area right here, so you have to route the 24-pin in this location, this tiny space here between this area and this area right here. I routed it there and pull it out and then store them into this area here. You can use the lone cable tie they provide to kind of tie it together into the remaining hard drive gauge area right here. So it's neat. Also, I stored all the extra cables there, and luckily I had a 90-degree SATA cable, so I could easily plug it in here even with the video card installed without looking. Pretty much that area there looks messy, but everything is out of the way, at least as best I can. And unfortunately, you don't have enough room to kind of route the cables at the back here, and there's no mounting hole here at the bottom as well for the SATA connector or the front panel audio connector. But other than that, what I'm going to do now is let me just put back the camera here. Of course, put back the side panels and then test out how well the Silverstone Precision PS08 case performs.